Hi, I'm John Campea, the Movie Blog, and this is my quick review of the new Will Ferrell film, Land of the Lost. Now, of course, The Land of the Lost is based on that old TV show, The Land of the Lost, that was so cheesy, especially in terms of its visual effects, but it has some nice nostalgic factors to it, and so turning that into a film is really not that bad of an idea. Adding performers like Danny McBride and Will Ferrell, also not a bad idea. Unfortunately, even though it seemed like a pretty good idea at the time, Land of the Lost turns out to be pretty much a disaster of a film. It is a comedy film, first and foremost. It's kind of a comedy and an adventure film, if you will. Not action film, but an adventure film. And as a comedy, it falls completely flat. There are maybe 3 or 4 moments in the film that got a chuckle out of me, but over the span of 90 minutes to 2 hours, that just ain't enough. It just did not work. One of my fears about a film like this is that up until Step Brothers, I and a lot of people had been getting kind of tired of Will Ferrell's shtick. Will Ferrell, who is a comedic genius, he had been losing it, or we had just been getting tired. Maybe he didn't lose it, but we were all just getting kind of tired of him. At least I was, and I know a lot of other people were as well. And then out of nowhere comes Step Brothers. That was one of the funniest films this decade. I mean, I've watched that movie about 5 times already, and I still laugh myself sick when I see it. So I'm thinking Will Ferrell's return to form, but unfortunately Land of the Lost comes along and it's right back to, it's the same Will Ferrell shtick, and I found myself very tired and bored of it. There wasn't a lot of laughs. Danny McBride, look, Danny McBride has got his fans, and a good number of fans, and maybe for some good reasons. I've never been overly impressed with Danny McBride. I've always thought he's been a competent supporting role character in comedies like this, but I've never found him to be exceptional or would have the strength to carry a film on his own. And in Land of the Lost, granted, it's probably not his fault. It's probably the material he was handed. Wasn't impressed with Danny McBride in this film. The action, let me talk about the action and adventure part. There's a lot of action and adventure scenes, mostly revolving around, as you've probably seen in the trailer, T-Rexes and dinosaurs and giant creatures chasing Will Ferrell around. But they make one big brutal mistake in this. I lost count of how many times we would see an action scene where Will Ferrell is, say, running from a T-Rex. And we see him running from a T-Rex. And we see Will Ferrell here, and the T-Rex gaining, because the T-Rex is so huge and so big. And then it cuts to another camera angle, and suddenly, magically, the T-Rex is now twice as far away from Will Ferrell as he was just a split second ago. And you cut to and then he's catching up, cut to another camera angle, and boom, the T-Rex is magically way behind him again. And when you have an adventure sequence or an action sequence, that takes any sense of excitement out of the scene, because there's no excitement, there's no being on the edge of your seat, because every time they switch camera angles, the monster's even further away from him. So it just took me right out of those scenes. Doing it once or twice is kind of but it happened like every single chase scene, and eventually it just became really annoying. So I mean, ultimately, Land of the Lost, a few laughs here and there, but ultimately not funny. As an adventure, and the action part of the film did not work for me. It has some cute moments, but overall just kind of falls flat. Overall, I give Land of the Lost a 3 out of 10. For the Movie Blog, I'm John Campea.